Welcome, dear listener. Welcome to Snoozy Bedtime Stories. Tonight, we leave the busy world behind and step into a place of deep, quiet, of patient rhythm. It's a place where time is measured, not in minutes, but in the turning of pages and the slow, sure progress of a pen. Find your most comfortable position. Let the weight of your body be fully supported, and allow your breathing to begin to soften and to slow. We will spend a year in the life of a medieval monastery scribe. Imagine, if you will, a great stone monastery nestled in a river valley. It is not a castle built for war, it is a fortress built for silence. Its walls are thick, keeping out not just the cold, but the noise and haste of the world. Inside, the air is still and carries a unique scent of perfume of dust and stone, of beeswax candles, and of something else, the rich, deep scent of parchment and ink. This is our home for the next while. And here, in the Scriptorium, the writing room, our scribe waits. His name is Brother Alred, though we will simply think of him as the quiet hand. Our story begins in winter, the deepest part of it. The world outside the Scriptorium's high, narrow window is a monochrome of white and gray. The sky is the color of unbleached wool, and a soft, silent snow is falling, muffling every sound. Inside, it is cold enough to see your breath, but near Brother Elred's desk, there is a small, permanent brazier bowl of glowing coals that paints a tiny circle of warmth on the stone floor. He draws his heavy, woolen habit closer around his shoulders. The only sounds are the gentle hiss of the snow against the glass, the pop of a coal, and the slow, steady rhythm of his own breathing. Before him lies his work, a large sheet of vellum. It is not paper, but stretched and scraped calfskin, creamy and faintly granular under his fingertips. It feels cool and solid and precious. To his right, his tools. A pot of black ink made from oak galls and iron salts, smells faintly metallic, like old pennies in rain. A few carefully trimmed goose quills, their hollow shafts waiting to be dipped. A pumice stone for smoothing the vellum surface, and a lump of lead for ruling the faint, guiding lines. He begins, as always, with a prayer not aloud, but a whisper in his mind. Lord, let my hand be steady, my eye true, and my heart quiet, that these words may shine. He picks up a quill, tests its point against his thumb, sensation of slight, pleasant resistance, and dips it into the ink. He touches the quill to the lip of the pot, letting one perfect, dark droplet fall back, and then brings the nib to the vellum. The first stroke is a deep, deliberate curve. The sound is a soft, dry scratch, a soothing, rhythmic whisper that fills the silent room. It is the only sound of making. He forms ledeza, Gothic textura, black and precise as wrought iron. Each letter is a tiny architecture. The vertical strokes are strong pillars. The curves are vaulted arches. He is not just writing. He is building a city of words on a plain of parchment. The text is a psalm. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. As he writes the words, he feels them. The green pastures become the quiet fields of his mind, resting under winter snow. The still waters are the deep well of silence within the monastery walls. His world contracts to this, the circle of candlelight on his desk, the growing column of text, the scent of ink, and the soft, whispering scratch of the quill. The cold, the year, the world outside, all fade into a peaceful irrelevance. There is only this line, and then the next. Weeks pass in this peaceful monotony. The snow melts, and a new sound arrives at the window, the persistent, gentle drip of water from icicles. One morning, a weak but clear sunlight slants through the window, and in its beam 1,000 motes of dust dance, like stars in a miniature universe. Brother Alred pauses, his pen held above the page, and watches them swirl in silent, chaotic grace. He smiles. It is a small, private sacrament. Then He bends his head again. The quiet hand returns to its work. Spring arrives not with a bang, but with a softening. The air in the scriptorium loses its biting edge. The cold stone of the floor seems less severe. Outside, the world is a chorus of quiet noise that drifts in through the open window. The distant bleat of a new lamb, the chittering of returning swallows, the sigh of a warmer wind through the bare branches of the orchard. It is a sound that makes one want to linger, to listen. His task changes with the season. The heavy psalter is complete. Now he is illuminating a book of hours of prayer book for a wealthy patron. This is slower, more delicate work. He prepares pigments. He grinds lapis lazuli on a marble slab with a drop of egg white and honey, turning it into a blue so deep and vivid it seems to hold the essence of the evening sky. He mixes madder root for a red as warm as a rose, and malachite for a green that speaks of new leaves. Today, he paints. In the margin of the page, next to a prayer for matins, the dawn officer is painting the initial letter D. He has outlined it in fine, brown ink. Now, with a brush as fine as an eyelash, he begins to fill it. He paints a tendril of ivy curling around the letter's stem. Each tiny leaf is a careful dab, a touch of that luminous green. Inside the curve of the letter, he paints a small, perfect bird of goldfinch's feathers touched with that precious yellow. His breathing becomes so slow, so shallow, as he works on the bird's tiny black eye. The world narrows to this single point of focus. The birdsong outside becomes the soundtrack to his creation. He is not just painting a bird. He is capturing a moment of spring's joy, of life's delicate beauty, and enclosing it forever on the page. It is an act of profound peace. The pen is now joined by the almost silent whisper of the brush on the surface. He works for hours, and it feels like a single, drawn-out, blissful minute. Summer brings a profound, drowsy heat to the scriptorium. The stone walls, so cold in winter, now radiate a stored warmth. The air is heavy and still. It's fragrant with the smell of dried herbs from the cloister garden lavender and rosemary and the faint, sweet smell of honey from his binding medium. Brother Alred has pushed his stool back slightly from the desk. The heavy wool of his habit is too much. He feels the bead of sweat trace a path down his spine. The sunlight is strong, a solid, golden bar falling across the far wall, slowly creeping across the floor as the day ages. He is copying a philosophical text now. The words are complex, by the scholar Boethius, contemplating fortune and fate. The intellectual work is slower, requiring pauses. He will write a line. If you want every adversity of fortune, the most unhappy sort of misfortune is to have been happy. And then he will stop. He will lift his gaze from the page, not to the window, but inward, eyes tired from the close work, unfocused. He sees the words hanging in the air before him. He contemplates their meaning, turning them over in his mind like smooth stones from a riverbed. The heat encourages this languor. The silence is not empty, but full of honeyed, thick silence. A fly buzzes lazily against the window pane, a deep, droning sound that seems to vibrate in time with the heat. He dips his pen again. The ink flows more freely in the warmth. The rhythm of his writing slows, becoming even more deliberate, each letter formed with a sleepy, sun-drenched care. This is not work fought against, but work succumbed to, like drifting in a warm, slow-moving stream. And then, autumn. The light changes. It is no longer the high, direct beam of summer, but a slanted, golden light. It pours through the high, narrow window, a liquid, honeyed light that seems to move slowly, so slowly, across the worn stone floor. It catches the floating dust and turns each mote into a tiny, drifting star, a miniature galaxy swirling in silent celebration. Before it touches the edge of the scribe's wooden desk, it warms the dark oak to a deep amber. And finally, it lays itself upon the parchment. It is a gilding, a blessing. The creamy vellum glows. The black ink drinks the light and shines with a soft, deep luster. And the illuminations, the blues and reds and greens, they ignite. The lapis lazuli becomes a piece of the evening sky trapped on the page. The madder root glows like a banked ember. The malachite is a fragment of a deep, stilled forest pool. Brother Alred watches this daily transformation, his hands resting in his lap, his breath slow. He does not rush, he observes, as the bar of light climbs, millimeter by millimeter, up the stacked quires of his finished work, as if the sun itself is patiently reading what he has written. The smells of the world outside drift in on a cooler, gentler breeze, the crisp, sweet decay of fallen apples in the orchard, a scent that is both fruity and earthy, the damp, rich perfume of leaf mold, of moss on stone, and underneath it all, the first, faint, comforting promise of wood smoke. A fire has been lit in the warming room, far below, and its scent, a smell of dried pine and ancient soot, winds its way up the spiral stair and under the door of the scriptorium. It is the smell of coming indoors, of shelter, of the world preparing to rest. His work now is binding, the year's labor of thought and hand, the patient accumulation of words and color, now exists as separate sheaves, piles of vellum, each one a quire, folded and nested. He gathers them, and the sound is a soft, dry shuffling, a whisper of skin against skin. She. He aligns the edges, tapping them gently on the desk. Tap, 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 until they form a perfect, solid block. This is the body of the book. He reaches for his binding tools, a strong linen thread, its color an unbleached natural cream, the color of oat straw. He feels its texture between his thumb and forefinger, slightly coarse, but strong, a reliable thread. He threads it through the eye of a curved needle, its metal cool to the touch. He takes the first quire and opens it to the central fold. This will be its spine. With a small, sharp awl, he begins to punch the sewing holes. He does not force it. He applies steady, gentle pressure. The tool meets the resistance of the vellum, then yields with a soft, precise. A little cloud of parchment dust puffs out. Punch. Again. Punch. The sound is crisp, but small, absorbed by the quiet of the room. It is a rhythm. Punch, pause, punch, pause, punch. 5 holes down the fold. He blows softly across the page, sending the tiny dust particles drifting into the golden light. Now, the sewing. He pushes the needle up through the first hole, from the outside in, a slight tug as it pulls the thread through, then down through the next hole, from the inside out. The thread shushes as it passes through the tight parchment hole. Shush, pause, shush. It is a sound of making, of joining. With each stitch, he pulls the thread taut, but not too tight. It must be firm, secure, but it must also allow the pages to open, to breathe. He ties a simple knot around a leather cord, a thick brown cord that will become the raised band on the spine. The knot is secure, a small, tight promise of permanence. He takes the next quire, aligns it perfectly with the first, and repeats the process. Needle up, shush. Needle down, shush. His hands move with a memory of their own. They do not need his conscious thought. This allows his mind to wander, to settle, to reflect. As he stitches, he thinks, not in words, but in impressions. The feel of the winter chill on that first day, the sight of the snow against the glass, the sound of the first spring bird that found its way into the margin of the page as a painted finch, the heavy, drowsy silence of the summer afternoon. When the words of Boethius swam before his tired eyes, each choir he sews is a season. Each stitch is a day within that season. The rhythm of the needle becomes the rhythm of the year itself. It's a slow, steady pulse of existence. Shush, winter. Shush, spring. Shush, summer. Shush, autumn. Outside, the wind picks up. It is not a storm wind, but an autumn wind, a sighing wind. Flows around the stone corners of the cloister, and it makes a low, mournful, beautiful sound. Ooh, it is a vowel of the earth. It slips through the window, and it touches the back of his neck, cool and fresh. It carries the scent of change, but here, at his desk, there is only continuity. It's only the growing connection of page to page. He works like this for what feels like hours, yet also like a single, elongated moment. The light shifts. The golden bar climbs the wall and begins to fade to a softer rose, then a dusky blue. The shadows in the corners of the scriptorium deepen, pooling like ink. He lights a single candle. Its flame is a tiny, steady star in the growing gloom. It dances, just slightly, the draft from the window, making the shadows of his hands giants on the wall, slowly weaving their invisible thread. Finally, the last choir is sewn. The last knot is tied. He holds the book, now a coherent block, in his two hands. It has weight, a solid, satisfying heft. He runs his palm over the spine, feeling the raised bands of the leather cords, the neat, regular stitches. It is a good spine. It will last. He places it down. The soft thump, a sound of finality, of completion. He leans back and closes his eyes. The physical work is done. A deep, quiet fatigue settles into his muscles. A good fatigue, an earned rest. He listens to the wind, still sighing, to the distant, muffled sounds of the monastery settling for the night. A door closing far below. The faint clink of a pot in the kitchen. And then it begins. Bong, the bell for vespers, the evening office. The sound comes from the bell tower, deep, resonant, and bronze. It vibrates through the stone of the floor, through the legs of his stool, up through the bones of his body, and settles in his chest. It is not a sound he hears with his ears alone. He feels it. Bong. It is a wave of sound that washes over him, through him, cleansing the day's focus, leaving only stillness in its wake. Bong. With each toe, he lets go. He lets go of the careful formation of letters, the minute adjustments of the brush, the tension of pulling a thread, taut. Bong. He lets go of the need to do and simply allows himself to be here in this quiet room as the last tone fades. It does not go to silence, but into a deeper, richer quiet that has been sung into being by the bell, hallowed quiet. He opens his eyes. The candle flame is the only moving thing. He looks at the book. It is no longer a task. It is an object in the world. It will have its own life now. It will be fitted with wooden boards, covered in leather, perhaps clasped with metal. It will be read by other eyes in other quiet rooms. His hand, his quiet hand, will be invisible in it. And that is as it should be. The work, not the worker. The prayer, not the prayer. He stands up, slowly, his joints stiff from long sitting. He stretches, and the world comes back into a gentle focus. He tidies his desk. The ink pot is closed with a soft click. The brushes are cleaned. The water in the jar, now murky with the ghosts of colors. The quills are wiped and set aside. The parchment scraps, the tiny leavings of a year's work, are gathered into a small pile. Each action is slow, ceremonial, a final, loving benediction on the day. He takes the candle. Its light pushes back the darkness just a few feet around him as he walks to the door. He looks back once. The scriptorium is a cave of shadows. The empty desk, the waiting tools, the finished book. It is all at peace. He closes the heavy oak door behind him. The thud is final. And now, dear listener, it is time for your own Vespers, your own evening office. You have journeyed through an entire year, through frost and sun, through the focus of the pen and the patience of the needle. You have felt the rhythm of a life dedicated to quiet making. Let all those images now soften and blur, like ink meeting water on parchment, okay? Let the scent of parchment and autumn smoke dissolve. Let the sound of the quill and the bell fade into the echoes of memory. All that is left is your own breath, the gentle rise and the gentle fall, the quiet hand of your attention, resting now on nothing at all. There is no page to fill, no line to rule, no ladder to form. There is only the soft darkness behind your eyelids and the deep, welcoming peace of a task completed. You have done enough. You have been enough. Okay. The book of this day is written. Now you may close its cover and sleep.